Most people think the most important years of their life are the ones spent in school, when the grades are high and the future still looks wide open. But at my age, I can tell you those numbers never meant what I thought they did. My name is Arthur, and I'm 92 years old. And there is one thing I wish someone had sat me down and told me when I was a boy, with a sharp pencil and a head full of dreams. That thing is still sitting with me now, because school taught me how to earn a living, but it never taught me how to live. When I was a kid, I was the kind of student teachers loved. I memorized quickly, I stayed quiet, and I always handed in my work on time. And my parents would beam with pride when I came home with another good report card. They told me I was going to go far, and I believed them. So I kept chasing those numbers on the page, thinking that each one was a step closer to becoming someone who mattered. I grew up during a time when being educated meant being respected, and I wanted that respect more than anything. So I learned how to compete, how to stay ahead, and how to hide any part of myself that might slow me down. That way of thinking followed me into adulthood. I became an accountant, which was a fine job, and I was very good at it. And for many years, my life was a neat stack of papers, deadlines, and meetings that made me feel important. I provided for my family, I paid the bills, and I kept climbing higher in my firm. And from the outside, it looked like everything was working just the way it should. What I did not realize at the time was that I was also becoming someone who measured his own worth the same way school had taught him to measure success: by results, by efficiency, and by how well he compared to others. There is one moment that has stayed with me more than any exam or promotion ever did, and it happened one evening when I was in my early 40s. My son was about 8 years old, and he had been practicing for a small piano recital at school. Nothing fancy, just a few children playing simple songs for their parents. I had promised I would be there, but that same week, a big client was visiting our office, and I decided I could not afford to miss the meeting. So I told my wife I would try to make it, even though deep down I already knew I would not. When the meeting ran late, I chose to stay, because that was what I had always done. And by the time I got home, the recital was over. My wife told me our son had kept looking toward the door every time someone walked in. And when his turn came, he hesitated before he began, as if he was still hoping I would show up at the last second. He played his piece, made a small mistake, and then rushed off the stage, embarrassed and quiet. And when he saw me later that night, he did not say a word about it. I remember feeling a small sting of guilt, but I brushed it aside, telling myself that one day he would understand that I was working for our family, and that this was just how life was supposed to be. It took me many years to see how wrong I was. My son grew up, and we became polite with each other, but not close. And when he moved away, I noticed how little he shared with me about his life. We were two people who loved each other in theory, but did not know how to reach one another in practice. And I could trace so much of that distance back to all the moments I had chosen work over presence, achievement over attention. No school ever warned me that being successful in the eyes of the world could make you quietly poor in the ways that matter most. As the years passed and I retired, the noise of my working life faded, and I was left with long days and a lot of time to think. And that is when the questions I had avoided finally caught up with me. I started to realize that the moments I remembered most clearly were not the ones where I had done everything right, but the ones where I had failed to show up for the people who loved me. I remembered my son at that piano, my wife sitting alone in the audience, and all the other small choices that added up to a life that looked impressive on paper, but felt thin when I looked back on it. What I have learned, standing here at 92, is that no grade, no title, and no amount of money can tell you how to be kind, how to listen, or how to love someone when it is inconvenient. Those things come from paying attention, from caring about the hearts of others as much as you care about your own progress, and from being willing to slow down when the world tells you to hurry. Moral education, the kind that teaches you what it means to be a decent human being, is not something you get from a classroom, but it is something you need far more than any certificate. I still talk to my son, and we have found our way back to each other in a quiet, careful way. But I cannot help thinking about how different things might have been if I had known earlier what I know now. I wish I had understood that being there, truly being there, was a form of success that no one ever taught me to measure. If you are younger than I am, which you almost certainly are, I hope you will remember that the way you treat the people around you will outlast every score and every achievement. And in the end, that is what makes a life worth living.